So I was like, okay, Josh, one of these days we can try the wings at Hooters. Oh, good evening, Galaxy fans. Good evening, Galaxy fans. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Mike Gray. I cover both the Galaxy and LAFC for the Striker. Here with me tonight to discuss the Cali Clasico and all of its goodness, my co-host, the faithful Alex Ruiz. How you doing, buddy?
I'm a little under the weather today, but it's okay. It's okay. How are you, man?
I'm still riding a high from this weekend, and I'm not necessarily talking about the Galaxy game. On Friday, I went to San Diego to Snapdragon Stadium, to be exact, to watch the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They are performing. Never seen them before live, so that was amazing. But I also had a dual purpose there, which was I wanted to check out the stadium. There's been some rumors that, as I mentioned on the last show, that San Diego is going to get an MLS team, and so I wanted to check it out. And yeah, dude, there's not a bad seat in the house. It's got all these premium spaces, local concessions and food. I mean, it's like it was a $300 million venue, and it's basically like a little mini football stadium. So it's got everything that you would need for an MLS team. Refreshingly, it's got kind of this SoCal vibe. We keep building stadiums in like one of the most beautiful places in the world. We keep building these stadiums with like giant roofs and stuff, and so it's refreshing to just have a stadium where you can just enjoy the SoCal air, especially at night. And then Red Hot Chili Peppers. I mean, we if you grew up in Southern California, which is all of us, like they're a K rock band. We've all heard their songs like a million times, right? But the radio hearing the Chili Peppers on the radio does not do them justice live, man. Like when you hear the band as an ensemble, especially like Flea and Frusciante and Kiedis, I mean, it's just like it blew my mind. So I cannot wait to go back this summer. There's going to be the derby with Angel City FC and San Diego Wave. You can actually get tickets for $10 on the upper deck. So I'm going to be hitting that up. And then also, there's going to be CONCACAF Gold Cup. Actually, the semifinal is going to be there too. So I have lots of reasons to go down there. So that'll be fun. Speaking of fun and speaking of excitement, I'm really sorry you're sick, man, because the vibes are awesome. I mean, the Galaxy won. They were going into this match against an Earthquakes team that was basically riding it high, firing on all cylinders. They beat LAFC at that giant football stadium. Chris Espinosa is an MVP candidate. Jeremy Bobasi has been just on fire. This was going to be a dangerous matchup, but before the match started, we had a bit of a beef, Alex, because, and then we'll just get this kind of out of the way. But you, me, and our good friend Rob Halone over at Last One on Soccer, we all observed Efra warming up rather lackadaisically. You actually pointed out that he was the only dude in Galaxy colors warming up who was wearing pants as opposed to like shorts. And what I saw was a player who was lackadaisical. He was laughing. He was smiling. You can do all of that if you're Maradona. If every other touch is bad and you're not warming up like a professional athlete. Like, I mean, what do you want to say? And then what made it worse is that he was warming up with two other players who we couldn't actually identify. But by the time that the warm up was done, the two players were probably closer to having Efra's sort of mindset than they were to just being like locked in. And so, for me, just I mean, it's harsh, but man, Efra, if you're not gonna like warm up like a professional athlete, man, like enjoy the bench because you simply don't deserve a spot in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I think with Efra, we've said so many times that this needs to be the year for him, and he needs to kind of come out and be able to kind of cement himself in games. And again, we haven't seen that. at all this year. So again, it's disappointing a bit. Obviously, like you mentioned, you would expect him to be a little bit more locked in, or competing at a I won't say at a higher level, but kind of being able to push himself and the rest of his teammates around him. I think Efrain Alvarez's time with LA Galaxy is probably coming to a close. Again, it's just there's a lot of different variables here. It's not just him being, I guess, casual player. Obviously, that kind of helps, but again, it feels like he's plateaued in his development as a football player. And at this current moment, I don't think that's going to cut it for Greg Manny and the Galaxy, who need quality players to come up in order for them to climb out the table.
Yeah, and speaking of distractions, shortly before the game or at some point during the beginning, the visiting San Jose Ultras, they had taken up a banner. A few of them, actually, they were calling the Angel City Brigade supporters group Judas. They were calling them traitors, or excuse me, sellouts. That was the word. First of all, I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, not not to start like anything, but if you're gonna call out people like the ACB did with Lars the other day, then you got to be able to take it too, right? But we did want to talk about this just briefly because I mean we talked about it in the press box just yesterday, Alex. This isn't our fight, right? But if there is a way for us to maybe advance the dialogue, and do it in a way that is respectful to everyone, then yeah, we're going to take it. I mean, I noticed that from my perspective, what observed was individuals trying to speak on behalf of the group and taking a lot of flack for it. And to me, that just wasn't right. And, that's why we felt compelled to say something. But, for the most part, we're just going to cover this professionally. So if, Lars, they had the forum, we covered it. If something else happens, we'll cover it. But other than that, I think we're kind of done on the subject for now.
Yeah, again, it's just gonna gotta wait and see what happens. That's all it is right now.
It's not our drama, so we should probably just stay out of it. But we'll say what needs to be said. Um, Now that we've got that taken care of, head coach and sporting director Greg Vanny, he's probably running a victory lap in his head, and this morning, and rightfully so, because he's had all sorts of pundits and people telling him that he needs to start Dejan and Chicharito together, even though he knew in his head that he didn't want to do that because it likely wouldn't work. So he goes back to something comfortable, what he knows, what was effective at least in his, or what would become effective in his eyes. Now, the 4-3-3, it wasn't. Uh, it didn't. The Galaxy started off the season quite poor, and but there are variables. They didn't have their starting players. They didn't have it together really, and so it made sense that the team would be poor. But I mean, what we saw versus the Earthquakes was kind of a revelation. I mean, first of all, the 4-3-3 worked because they created clear-cut chances. Now, that's been missing all season long. For me, that was my baseline for whether or not this Galaxy team can actually improve and actually make something out of this season was whether they could create clear-cut chances. And, Javi missed God knows how many in the first half, and, we're going to talk about that a little later. But, by the end of the game, the XG matched with, the chances, and so on and so forth. The Galaxy were also successful in transition. Ricky Puig, for example, did he have his best individual game? No, but it was nice to see Ricky Puig actually be Ricky Puig and just dominate a game and put his stamp on it. And a good reason for that was because he wasn't having to, slalom around a bunch of players just to progress the ball up the field. He had time, he had space, he was in the right spaces, and he was dangerous the whole match. And then finally, and then this is where I'll maybe bring it over to you, Alex. But the Galaxy were defensively sound. There was a moment in the 7th minute, Julian Ade is going up against Espinoza. He does a brilliant job of just timing a jump so that he can, maybe get, sort of get his body on the ball, which is exactly what happens. The ball squirts over to the sidelines, and Ade beats Espinoza to a tackle. Nice crunching tackle. And yeah, the Galaxy kept everything in front of them. So even when they did have to scramble, it was on rare occasions. And on the rare occasion they did scramble, usually had Jalen Neal cleaning everything up, and another really impressive performance from him.
Yeah, defensively, this team just was locked in from the start. And I think you mentioned right there, right, that like I guess clearance or interception or whatever on Espinoza from Aude, like that was a really, really good play, and really set the tone of what we were expecting from Aude. I think he did a really good job, and he talked about he wanted to instruct him to be, a little bit more defensive, more conservative, not go up ahead as often as he has during his starts with the club. And honestly, it worked out. Credit to Greg Vanny for doing that. And Aude held his own against Espinoza. I think, out of 9 cross attempts, Espinoza wasn't able to get one completed, and Aude made it really difficult closing down space. Really limited what Espinoza could do in the final third, and I think that's kind of one of the biggest storylines out of this game. Him and Caligari just having absolutely amazing games for the Galaxy. For Aude, I'll just keep going. I thought he was just incredible defensively. We know that this guy, after the goal he scored against Seattle, like he's got a wonderful a knack for getting forward and being dangerous in the attack. But he proved it against Espinoza. Just he's got it defensively as well. And for Caligari, just overall, he was really, really good, really solid. For me, when I watch him, he looks like the perfect inverted fullback. Just the way he's got on the ball, his technical ability, kind of wiggle out of these tight spaces. And again, he's just a guy who's gonna keep working and working until he's just been down on the ground, right? Like he won't give up and he won't stop running. And I think that was evident yesterday. I think one of the one things I liked about Caligari too was that his runs with Tyler Boyd were really, really good and kind of getting that width out on the right side. We didn't see it as much on the left side, so, unsurprisingly so. Memo Rodriguez was kind of just out there by himself, and Yever Kipuchi tends to go over there. But on the right side, the dynamic between Boyd and Caligari, I think, is going to be really important to get this width from the team. And those two both speak Portuguese. They have a communication there, so I think we'll probably see that side of the pitch kind of be the side that the Galaxy tend to attack more on, be more dangerous on, and I think it was just overall a good game from those two fullbacks.
Yeah, I like how balanced this team is in a very interesting way. You have Ade, who was, Greg Vanny mentioned in the press conference that Ade was instructed to play a bit conservative, and then you have Caligari, who's all over the place and has that tendency to drift central. And so you do have sort of that stability, and then I don't want to talk, I don't want to premature, but I mean Memo Rodriguez. I mean, I thought he had an amazing game, but we'll talk about him a little later. Yeah, the first half was just about everything you would want except for one thing, Alex. The Galaxy were not scoring goals, and let's just get right to it, man. What's eating Chicharito? Because yeah,
Yeah, I know. It's just so difficult to watch because the last couple of games, he's just looked more like a liability than an asset in the final third, I think. His touches have been poor at times. He's been disconnected when it comes to his passes. And again, he's had chances. This last game had 3 in the first half. Couldn't put him away, couldn't put him on target. And I think that's the most disappointing part. Couldn't really test the goalkeeper and, make it a good chance. I think, he ended the game with an XG of about point 0.8, so that's pretty high for him not to be able to score and stuff. So, you know, I wrote in my keys to the game, which you guys should all read, that Chicharito had to step up and be the guy for the team, and kind of put a lot of the scoring burden on his shoulders. Couldn't do that, but less than a minute in, Dejan Joveljic does that. So, right now you're kind of just worried about Chicharito's form because while it was great to see the team win, at some point those chances are going to bite you in the back if you can't put them away.
you were talking about how how he wants to put the team on his shoulders and he wants to be the guy. And he mentioned the other day in the press conference about how he was one of the few people who just consistently stand up to the media and just talk to us. And so, let me ask you this, Alex: do you think that perhaps Vanny mentioned that certain players were overthinking, that they were trying to do too much? We've spoken at length about his physical decline a bit. Do you think that maybe in his head he's trying to do a little too much?
I want to say he's physically declining, more kind of his technical ability, because he's still a pretty fit guy, Chicharito. It's not that part of his
Yeah,
game. I
we'll
think
clear.
just
I'll clarify that right
yeah,
then.
because
Yeah.
his body's looking nice out there, man. So just wanted to say that.
Those
Um,
shirtless pics, man. Like I'm telling you, like
Yeah, I know. But again, just his technical quality, I think, is maybe a bit more rusty and lacking that sharpness. But yeah, I think Chicharito just kind of needs to just have a game where he just have a good finish, a lot of the players, like Manny said a couple weeks ago, kind of make themselves their own worst enemy, and I feel like that can be Chicharito as well. Trying to force something, trying to do too much. Again, he's kind of had to do it the last couple of years. He's had to be the goal scorer, and I think the club has 8 players who have all scored at least one goal this year in Major League Soccer. So,
Oh God.
well, that's such quite an interesting stat. But I think for Chicharito, you just kind of need to approach the game, excuse me, in more simple terms and just be dangerous, in your own way. So I'm really looking forward to see what he does in his next 2 games on the road, and obviously that big game at LAFC next week is going to be huge. And I think if you need him to be firing on all cylinders, it's that game.
The British use the word interesting when something's actually pretty screwed up. So I hear you on that one, Alex. So it wasn't just magic dust that made the 4-3-3 work. It was nice for the continuity and for repetition and for them to just like we said before, Vanny knew that if he trotted out that formation X amount of times, eventually things would click and the team would get it. But for me, and maybe you can expand on this, I thought the 4-3-3 worked specifically because of the great individual performances of both Tyler Boyd and Memo Rodriguez.
Yeah, I think Memo, although he didn't get the ball in many dangerous wide areas, if you kind of look at his touches, but his movement off the ball, I think, was really important. And I think that's something the Galaxy kind of lacked in his first couple of starts with the club, where he was kind of starting out wide. It felt like too many times he drifted centrally or not as high up the pitch as you would want. But I felt like this game, off the ball, he was making those runs and trying to spread out the back line. And again, Tyler Boyd, like we mentioned, he was really dangerous this game. He had a lot of shots that were very close.
He's good.
And yeah, and his movement I think was incredible. And again, he's the only true winger on this team now. Um, so it's great to kind of see him round into form, and I think he's a player that's gonna play a key role these next couple of games. Obviously, you want to kind of get some more goals and assists out of him, and I think he's capable of it. I think he's a talented player. I think he's a guy that we all saw his goal in El Trafico, right? Like he has that in his locker at times, and I think that he's gonna be one to watch for sure in this road trip to Columbus and DC.
Tyler's settling into the team, and he's a player who hasn't had much playing time the past 3 years in Turkey. Uh, I say this all the time. From beginning to end, it takes like 6 months to go from just starting over to being like to having like I guess ideal match fitness. We're gonna see him continue to improve. I expect him to improve 10-20% more over than that I'd say by the time next month ends. So, Tyler is someone that the Galaxy are going to be depending on. And then as far as Memo Rodriguez, you're right. Not a lot of wide touches. But let's flip the script because all we ever heard, when we talk about Rodriguez, the first thing out of our mouth is always he's not a winger. But let's talk about what he is. He's someone who's a decent facilitator, especially specifically in central areas. We saw that in the very beginning when he played that beautiful slip pass to Chicharito, who really should have finished it or played it to Delgado. And again, he's also brings defensive stability. Uh, I didn't see the earthquakes create much centrally at all, and there are reasons for that. But the only danger that they created was really from wide areas and playing central from that way. And so both of these players are, Rodriguez is a guy who started off strong. He was starting every game, and then we just didn't see him for a while. There was some question marks as to what's going on here. Is this maybe like Mavinga, where you think he's going to have a role to play, and then you figure out quite early on not so much, and then it turns out he had this great game. So it's going to be interesting to see what the team does moving forward. Let's see. Let's check for comments. Rene Alvarez, Ade pocketed Espinoza.
He
Yep.
did. He basically did that, and I think again, as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, maybe I think he's 20, fullback, be able to do that against one of the better players in Major League Soccer. I mean, it shows that the Galaxy scouting department is doing a good job and getting the right investments, and I think we really got to praise them on that because I know it's still kind of early, but I think Caligari just looked like hits off the bat,
Yeah.
So I think they really got to be praised on that. And that sector of the field is going to be a strength for the Galaxy team. Heading into the year, Raheem Edwards, no Julian Araujo. Now you got 2 solid guys. 2 solid fullbacks. I think that's just a great. They both fit the system well. I think it's just great, and we got to give the Galaxy scouting department their props for that.
Indeed, and I do think that Rodriguez does fit the bill. Being a possession guy, he fits into the team better
Hmm.
than most. I mean, oh, and just for one thing, he was actually the only person behind Ricky Puig on FOTMob. He was the second highest rated player, so he obviously had an impact. And then we get to the second half, and Galaxy finally get ahead. It was a corner kick. Caceres goes off the back of his noggin. We thought Ricky Puig had a touch. That's what I tweeted, but turns out it was Caceres. And then the Galaxy they just kept going strong. It kept plugging away, and then finally, Alex, we had a moment of absolute magic. Because Dejan Joveljic gets subbed into the match. It was extremely late. Vanny clarified after the match that there were certain players that he wanted to keep fresh for the upcoming road trip. 4 games in 12 days if you count the Open Cup. So they're going to need fresh bodies. So he was inserted late. And then what was great, Alex, if, going back to my article last year that I caught a lot of flack for where I said that he works best as a super sub. Uh, it was awesome because we saw the old school sort of Dejan Joveljic, which is the angry dude who goes on the field and he wants to do he just wants to create an impact and he's just running all over the field like I don't want to say like a chick with his head cut off, more like a stealth fighter jet. I don't know, but yeah, and so the ball squirts to Mensa and he just like takes off like he's in a track meet. Mensa just craps his pants basically, doesn't know what to do, tries to shield it. Jovic takes it from him, slots it under JT Marcinskowski, and then just does this crazy celebration where he just jumps onto the makes it all the way to the bench, gets on the chair, and just I mean, I don't even know how to describe it, man.
Yeah, I know. Joveljic just creates chaos, and I think that's what you really need from a sub off the bench. And with Joveljic starting a lot of that games, he didn't have that guy off the bench for a lot of the season. You had good players like maybe Douglas Costa coming off for a bit. He provides some spark, but not a guy who would create chaos and be a danger. I think having Joveljic back at that super sub position is amazing because, for one, we know that works, and two, this team doesn't have a good record when Dan Joveljic starts. I gotta look back into that and see what it is now. But I think that was what the guys needed. That celebration, kind of everybody there, kind of enjoying the game, enjoying the pure feeling of victory, and that hasn't been felt a lot this year. Kind of getting back to back wins at home was huge. They know this road trip is going to be tough, and they'll have to grind it out. But I think they'll still be able to kind of put up a fight, and I think this was very much needed for the morale in the locker room. Kind of everybody there to celebrate the moment, enjoy it with the fans. The crowd wasn't amazing, but they still were there with the team, and it still felt like there was a lot of momentum behind the club right at that celebration moment, right when, it went 2-0 up. And I think, that's a feeling this club's going to look to chase and look to replicate so many times as, they're not too far away from playoff spot. If I'm correct, only 3 points back from ninth place. So, it's not all lost right now, but I think this is definitely a good step, and I think a good thing for the players.
That's a good segue to get to our next topic. Steve Burns, to be exact, he was asking 16,000 for attendance. I thought the ACB was going to be silent for the first 10 minutes of each half. Second half, it seems like they just started chanting at the beginning of the half. We're not here to talk about their strategy, but what we will talk about is the attendance. 16,000 was kind of pathetic. I'm not going to lie.
It felt like less than that too at times, if we're going to be honest.
Well, they're doing tickets distributed, not butts and seats. So, yep. And then there has been by now it's pretty obvious that they're giving away tickets in certain sectors, doing certain things to get more butts and seats, and it's not really paying off. There is the caveat that it was Mother's Day. Unfortunately, they got outdrawn by Angel City FC, who had 17,000 and plus at their game, and so yeah, I mean on Mother's Day weekend, like Saturday's going to be busy too, so I don't really consider it to be a really good excuse.
Yeah, I think just the attendance is going to be the biggest glaring, most noticeable thing in all these home games. And again, when the Galaxy team is firing on all cylinders and they're good, that place is rocking. But when they're not, it's obviously a shell of itself. So, I
Yeah, but
think the emphasis of getting these wins is also just getting these fans back into their seats, and that doesn't happen without winning.
But
Winning
all
cures
that is
everything.
what makes, Joveljic's celebration so great. I mean, this was just sort of a personal Mike thought, but I've been saying to myself, when's the last time you saw this team really celebrate a goal? Like, like really celebrate a goal. And that's what that was. There were staff members and assistants spraying water bottles. Everybody was just, well, almost everybody. The only person who seemed to be kind of upset was Ricky Puig. Now, the I know how the fans like to stir up stuff, and there was kind of talk like, well, Ricky wasn't happy after Joveljic scores. Let me tell you guys what I saw. I saw a Ricky that was just being like a little just. I don't want to say the S word, but like, you know, look what happens when Joveljic scores that goal. The first thing Ricky does is, he just gestures towards the crowd like this, and then grabs the ball and just, punts it into the air. He thrives on the edge. That's what I love about him. He's just, I don't want to call him a little shit, but like he gets so pissed off, and he just like when he gets mad and gets competitive, Ricky is the only Ricky and like Dejan. Those are the two players with maybe Javi that I wouldn't want to mess with.
They're just pests. That's what they are at
Yes,
times.
in
You
the
don't have to
best
call them a little
possible way, in the
shit,
most
but like
complimentary possible way, in the way that like French arrogance with certain places. Oh,
you're
excuse me,
gonna get in
Dutch
trouble for
arrogance.
that.
Nope, nope, nope. Dutch arrogance. That's actually a thing. Let me tell you, Alex. There are actually books in like the Netherlands that like you read the book, and the book is to get you to understand Dutch football, because like Dutch culture is so like interesting, and like you really need to understand the Dutch people to understand Dutch football. And that's something I learned from what was it, Johan Cruyff's autobiography, which I have right behind me. But so yeah, French arrogance, we'll cut that one off. That didn't happen. But
Yeah.
Dutch arrogance, very much a thing. So and players talk about it all the time. How it's good to have that like healthy just arrogance. Like, I want the ball at all times. I'm the best player. Give it to me. Like you saw it with Joveljic. Like when he got in the game, how dare you not start me? How dare you play me for 5 or 6 minutes? I'm going to show you. And then you saw what happened. So
Yeah, again, you need that too. I mean, obviously with Joveljic, there's definitely a lot of motivations for him. He's a guy who was called up for the Euro 2024 qualifiers. And he was kind of talking about it post game when I asked him about it. But being able to kind of be recognized among some elite strikers in Europe, be called up for the national team, I think is a great thing for him and something that drives him every single game. Again, when you're playing in a super sub role and your minutes are limited, you need to take advantage of that. And, I think for him, it was really frustrating to be the starter for a large part of the year and just not score, just score once all season. And I think, him being on that radar of Serbia, him being, a player that's still young and, wants to, I'm sure his motivation is still to go back to Europe and, make that jump. But I think, seeing that fire and that feistiness, intensity that he brings is much needed, not just for the team, but for the entire club. Having that fight, having that, strength and I guess contagiousness of, being a person who wants to get the best out of yourself and everybody else. So I think he's a guy who's very motivated and a guy who's going to motivate this Galaxy team.
yeah, he was candid post game, mentioning that sometimes it's easier to go into the game as off the bench and make an impact versus from the jump starting and making an impact. Um, yeah, it's just I don't think Joveljic was saying that in a positive way. I think he was just being matter of fact about it. So I think he knows more than anybody that he needs to learn to become consistently good, whether it's a starting role or off the bench. So, but yeah, Alex, 7:02. Normally we would take off, but I think we'll do one final segment before we move on. Unfortunately, I did not get to watch a Columbus game like you. Galaxy are playing Columbus midweek. Usually I like to watch the games beforehand. Didn't have time due to this Cali Clasico situation, the congested schedule. What I can tell you is that Wilfred Nancy, their head coach, he's been pretty successful at taking sort of the philosophy that he instilled with his Montreal side over to Columbus, meaning they are a team that's one of the most, I guess, free flowing units in the league. And Also, he's been really good at like youth development, and you're seeing both of those pay off so far in Columbus. So for me, the question's going to be how the Galaxy can really do something against. Well, put it to this way: the Crew are a team that can they prey on teams that aren't disciplined in their shape, and they can punish you very easily. So, how does the Galaxy get around that, Alex?
Yeah, I think it's just going back to this 4-3-3, right? Like you have your defined shape, something that you've worked on all preseason and for a majority of the season long. And I think reverting back to that is essential for this Galaxy team to kind of not be caught out of position or caught in uncomfortable situations. Like you said, Nantes teams like to be free flowing. You know, they're comfortable switching players in different positions. Like they're a very versatile team. Like that's when I think of Nantes Montreal, I think of that very versatile in their personnel who they put in there. Everybody's comfortable on the ball, and I think it's something that the Galaxy is going to have to kind of get used to. You know, you're going to see a center back maybe play in the midfield, a forward kind of drop in the midfield, or a fullback kind of in that final third. They're a team that likes to bring chaos, and I think the Galaxy need to be controlled chaos. Know where they need to be positioned, know where they need to be when it comes to kind of playing out of high press, which is something Columbus tries to do at times. They want to make it difficult for the Galaxy to establish that possession. I think as long as they're able to stay in their shape, know their roles, and not kind of overthink it, I think this Galaxy team's going to put up a really good fight. Columbus right now not really in the best stretch of form compared to earlier in the year. A couple of draws and losses here, but I think they're still a dangerous team and somebody that a lot of the league is very excited to watch. And I like watching Columbus. Honestly, I think they're a really fun team in some of the games that I've watched them play in this year. So I'm really looking forward to this game. I think it'll be a really really interesting game and really really fun.
I'm with you, Alex. Let's get to another comment. Choi, which game will Vanny rotate the most, do you guys think, against Columbus or DC? I say they try to get a win against Columbus and just let the bench play against DC to get for Tuesday.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think with DC, so interesting because Christian Benteke was out last week, but he might come back for this Galaxy game. I don't think there's a guy in the back line that can defend Benteke. I mean, Caceres isn't really like a big dude. I think he'll like struggle with Benteke, and I think Jalen Neal physically just isn't ready to deal with the challenge of a target man like Benteke. So I think we'll probably see a big rotation there. I think in the midfield we'll probably see maybe Brugman or Puig. Puig has played 90 minutes in all of his starts, which is very impressive. But I think he kind of comes off a little early. Same thing with Brugman as well. And kind of that rotation of Chicharito and Joveljic you'll kind of have to get. So I think this Galaxy will probably see a lot of rotation, like we mentioned at the start of the podcast, right? I think Efrain Alvarez, if he's going to get any minutes, is going to be during this time, and he's got to take advantage of those minutes because his window to be an impactful player on this club is really, really shrinking by the game. So I think you're right, and we'll see a lot of rotations at DC. And no offense to DC, but I mean they're not the scariest team on paper. So I think Manny feels a little bit more comfortable rotating there.
Ramses Salmaran writes, stuck in Costco gas station traffic watching El Trafico. Oh, well,
Nice.
thanks, buddy. We appreciate it.
I feel
You
like going
get
to Costco now. I don't know why, but like I'm such a big Costco pizza guy. Like right before we were getting on the air, I'm like, shoot, man, I think I should order like a Costco pizza or something. So whoever made that comment, I'm getting a Costco pizza because of you.
Dude, they used to have these chicken bakes that were really good. Do they
Oh
still have
my
like the
god.
$1.50 churros? Like, oh my God, man. And then they used to have the yogurt and ice cream and
The Costco food court is very good. Very
yeah,
underrated at
and
times.
they've kept the hot dogs. I read a whole article about how they kept the
Yeah.
hot dogs in their
Yeah, it's still at like 150 with like a drink too, I think. So I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, we're we're
Inflation
we're
ain't gonna
very
get us there.
we're very appreciative of our fans, our listeners, and also of Costco. Good times. Whenever the Galaxy play, I mean, things are
We
going
should do
good.
a live event, a live recording at Costco. If we
Rams
really
is
wanted to be ambitious.
live Costco. Dude, that'd be awesome.
It
Rams
would
is
be
dead.
horrible. It's so
Remo is
busy.
Remo is USL quality player. All right, I'm gonna boo that take, man, because nope, he's actually someone who was thought very highly of. Memo's kind of Houston's Ephra in a way, except
He is.
except not like that. We're not, we're not saying
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Memo is that kind of, he's not going to be the guy on every team. he's more of kind of like maybe a supporting player. And again, I don't think he's has the quality to be the guy, like I said. But I mean, he's a solid guy to have in your rotation. And I think coming into this year, his he wasn't going to be a starter. Obviously, with the injuries and the transfers and personnel of the club, he's kind of been forced to do that. But I think he's just a solid player, and I think obviously you when you're playing out wide and you started the season and you couldn't score any goals, record any assists. I understand kind of the negativity towards him, but I mean having 2 goals his last game against the Sounders and assist this last game in Cáceres' goal. I mean you gotta see a little bit of a positive turnout right there. And like I said, he won't ever be the guy, but if he's a quality supporting player, like that's just fine. That's the perfect role for him.
Agreed, my friend. Well, it's 7:08. I think I've run out of things to say for today. You're We got to give a round of applause to Alex because, like you said at the beginning of the show, he's sick, but he
This
plowed through it.
was like Michael Jordan's flu game right here. So
Exact. Oh man, Alex has always got good
did I just
takes.
compare myself to Michael Jordan
Hey,
playing in the playoffs
I
with
think
the flu while I'm just here in front of a microphone talking?
I
Yes,
think
yes,
it's
I did.
I think it's an appropriate, observation and comparison, dude. What's wrong with comparing yourself to Michael Jordan? I mean, you're both human beings. You're both successful. You're both geniuses, and you're both hardworking. I mean, same person, right?
I guess.
I'm gonna say you're the same person. Be like Mike. All right, my name is Mike Gray. I am the dude who covers both the Galaxy and LAFC for the Striker. And this is my faithful co-host, Alex Ruiz. You can catch us online on Twitter. Subscribe to the Striker. Read this dude's stuff. I got an article coming out this week about Costco. Whoops,
Costco.
Cosmo.
Oh yeah, be sure to vote Cosmo in the Mascot Hall of Fame. I did that
Yes.
yesterday. Did that again today. Made my mom do it. Make somebody else do it. He totally deserves to be there. Shout out to
Get on
Cosmo,
it,
man.
guys.